Hi everyone. We're still expecting a few more participants to join us today, but I think that we can kick off so we can give more time to discussions in the end. Welcome everyone. This is the ODI's Friday lunchtime lecture. I'm Annalisa. I'm working in the business development team at the ODI, and I would like to welcome today Suki Fuller, who is a founder of Miribure, I hope it's correct. A strategic and competitive intelligence consultancy and fellow at the Council of Intelligence Fellow. Suki is listed in Computer's Weekly Most Influential Women in the UK Tech 2019, and she's here with us today to discuss why the fifth industrial revolution will be about reclaiming our time. So before I hand it over to Suki, I would like to do just a little bit of housekeeping and reminding you to please turn off your cameras and mute your mic as we will be recording this session. As I said, we intend to allow plenty of time after Suki's presentation for you to ask questions and discuss this in more detail. So please submit your questions using the chat function. After the presentation, I will ask you to unmute one by one following the question order so that you can ask Suki your question directly. Otherwise, I will be happy to ask the question for you. So Suki, I hand it over to you now.
One of the things that I know a lot of people want me to speak about, is the fact of the contact tracing app that we are developing here in the UK. I say we, but I don't mean me specifically. I mean the UK NHSX team and whoever companies they're working with, etc. That was not originally the intent of this lecture. Talk, speak, session, whatever you want to call it. But I was asked to do this last year for early 2020. However, because of the worldwide pandemic, I'm now doing this in May and at home. So the content of my talk is significantly different than what it was for early March. May is now completely different, and even 2 days ago is different just because of the updates that we are getting and the things that we're seeing that are happening with the world and what we know is changing with the world. Whereas before, last year, we were very much moving towards a more collaborative and humanitarian world when it came down to business, how we were doing with global warming. There was a lot more consensus that was happening in the world. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot more nationalism, a lot more isolationism happening because of what's going on in each and every individual country. And I'm going to be speaking about that more in depth. But, you know, we don't have slides right now. However, I have them on my other device, so I can speak to them. Okay. All right. The fifth industrial revolution, and that's identified, as we all know, you know, the first, the second, the first, the fourth, all that good stuff. The fifth, this is where we're supposed to be having more humanity. We're supposed to be more purposeful, more driven towards making the world more inclusive. And that's why it's been a highlight with the UN SDGs, at Davos this year earlier, they spoke about how we could become more humane and purposeful. Davos, okay, more inclusive, which is always sort of a misnomer when you think about Davos, but reclaiming our time. And I said reclaiming our time because as we become more focused on using technology in a more collaborative manner, we should be able to reclaim our time. As I was saying, I guess I should get back on track. Let me take a sip of my water, not a G&T. Okay. As I was saying, so they have these 16 goals, 17 being the partnership for all of the goals. And as you can see, great. We were all working towards this sort of combined effort within all of the goals. And it was going pretty good. I'd say last year there seemed like there was more of a global sort of coming together behind a lot of these goals. It was becoming more inclusive, although there were some parts of the world that were really not so great. But generally, overall, the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that bad. But this pandemic's kind of put it into a whole nother place. So right now, a lot of countries are focusing on, like here in the UK, focusing, and for all you that might be somewhere else, I'm sorry, but I'd say a lot of countries are focused, especially those that are first world, hate that term, but first world it is, are concentrating on economic growth and infrastructure, industry and innovation, and decent work. So they're focused on 8 and 9. So anything that seems to be more humanitarian in its outcome, they've thrown away. There's such a heavy focus on, we want to make sure that we can, sustain society by growing our economies. We can't have the economy crumble. But at the same time, they're forgetting the humanitarian aspect of society. It doesn't matter if you have growth if there's no one to buy anything, if there's no one to grow anything, if there's no one to actually make the economy grow. You can't have infrastructure if you have no one to actually build. You can't have teachers going back to school when they are also parents. You can't have, so it's almost like we've regressed a little bit. And that's really disappointing. I think for most of us, that's really disappointing. In the last few weeks that we have been in this lockdown, 2 months, whatever, we've seen this throwback to becoming more tribal, and not tribal in a more cohesive manner, as in we're all included. It's become more divisive. It's become a lot more recently an us and a them. And I'm hoping that we can get back to that area of where it was about being more humane, having a purpose, having a way to drive forward the economy, to drive forward society, but so also remembering the humanitarian aspect. Because what's the point of having a purpose to a business if it's not including the people? You can't have business without people. And go to the next slide. I'm just like thinking, because I know now I'm completely off track. Yeah, you can skip that slide too. Go to the next slide, because tech alone will not save us, and that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing that with apps. So we'll get to that contract tracing app, but we're seeing that tech is not going to save us, and that's sort of always been this mantra, that tech will save us, and collaboration is key, and we seem to be losing that recently. Industry, the economy, let's start the economy back up. But just today we had TFL. All these slides are going to be completely irrelevant because I'm just going to talk about things that have happened in the last 2 days and things that have happened even this morning. So this morning we had TFL, the mayor of London, got his deal. He got a large sum of money for TFL to actually function, because he disclosed a few days ago that the government had said last week that they were going to be working towards an 18 of May deadline in order for everybody to open back up the economy and go back to work. However, they then changed that deadline on Sunday when the Prime Minister got on television and said, oh, Wednesday, and yeah, you could go back tomorrow. So TFL, which was actually makes most of its money, I think 80% or 75% of its money from the cost of people traveling. So if there's nobody traveling, they lose 80-90% of their income. With people on this lockdown no longer traveling, they don't have any money. However, the government and whoever, everybody's still expecting them to still function as though they are able to take everybody to work, but they have no money, because the way that the travel accommodation is now set up for transportation, they're not able to have as many people on buses. They're not having people pay when they get on buses. They're not able to have as many people on trains. So it's like a quid pro. How is this supposed to work? And what I'm not seeing here, unfortunately, is collaboration. I'm seeing a very big line drawn when you don't let people know ahead of time what's going to happen. So we now have this blameism going on of, let's not be partisan about it. But in fact, people are, because it's now mudslinging. Well, the mayor had all this money. He shouldn't be charging people. Now we're going to have older people having to pay for their bus fares. There's no subsidy for them. Fares are going to go up, even though the mayor, when he came into the office, he said that he was not going to be raising prices, and he didn't. And now prices will have to go up. Two people that are now also not working, or they're furloughed, or they're getting benefits. So next year when the prices go up, you're going to be hitting people up for more money in an economy that has slowed down into a depression because of the pandemic. So it's just a very circular situation. Sorry, I'm just saying this has not been a very good 24 hours for us here in the UK when it comes down, especially in London. But it's going to hit all the major cities because public transportation is the way. For people that don't have cars, it's just going to be absolute nightmare. Congestion charges for people that have cars is going to be a nightmare because the price of gas is going to go up. But I digress. So tech will not save us. It has to be a collaboration of humans and technology. Technology cannot be the driving force. Humans have to be the driving force. We have to decide where we are accepting of technology to be in our lives, where we're accepting of whether or not we are wanting to use public transportation in the same way. I mean, Oyster cards, contactless pay, great. Is it now going to be contactless, as in when you get on, it's going to be a body sensor? I mean, there are so many thoughts going through my head, because if you can't pay getting on a bus now and it is contactless pay, I don't understand. Why can you not do that? Why are you not able to use contactless pay if you have just a card and you're just supposed to be scanning it on the machine? Why are you not able to do that? Why have we not put those measures in place? Because we didn't have enough time. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm totally off track. But we can go to the next slide and we can skip that too. It's just pretty. No, but it's no, go back. Yeah, but I really want to talk about this because originally when I started thinking about humanity and about inclusion and about purpose and about tech, this picture that I took at GITEX, which is a world's largest sort of technology fair in Dubai. It's huge, couple football stadiums full of technology. But what was really awe-striking about this picture is that it sort of encapsulates the idea that the robots are coming to get us. But in fact, at this time, it seems like we're now going to be the robots, especially when you see the two little robots on the side. I mean, that's what we're going to pretty much look like if it continues this way with our little coronavirus. We have to be living in a bubble. But it was just really ironic. I took this picture 2-3 years ago, and it just seemed very fitting to put in the presentation last night. But this is the part. What is the purpose of this contact tracing app? So we all know that it is a centralized app that the UK is now developing with the NHSX team. But what is the purpose? Because with any technology, we all know in the world, you have tech. Someone's developing an app. No tech is developed for one purpose. There is not ever one purpose of a technology piece, because it's completely ridiculous to think that this is just going to be a contact tracker. It is initially going to be a contact tracker, but there are so many areas and aspects of this that render that thought completely stupid. There's no way it can be one. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know if everybody is aware of how the app will work. So, sorry, I'm just a little off. So I think I'm going to look at my own copy here because I'm going to, sorry. I hate having the abyss open. No. Go to slide 13. That might just be all that other stuff. Can you magnify that for people to see? No. Okay, doesn't matter. Just go to slide 13 because this is the part that I think people are not really able to understand, is that they're saying that the app itself doesn't collect information, but in order for the app to, you can see it? Okay, terrific. But in order for someone to be identified, it has an identifier unit. Sorry. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to take a breath. I'm sorry. I've just gotten a little flustered because completely off track. Apologies. Big apologies. So, we know recently that the code for the app was released. I haven't had really a chance to look at it, but and they've engineered it so that it will now work with Apple's iOS, and so it can actually not identify. I need to turn off the chat function, sorry, because it's distracting me. Give me just a second, because I am getting very off track. So basically, before we got started, I dropped my laptop. And I am having technical difficulties because there are things that are not functioning. So I'm having to use two devices, which normally would not be a problem. However, today it is. So now Shiny Happy Suki is still shiny happy, but not really. So I'm just going to talk. So paper notes, here they come. As we know, in order for people to use the app, in order for people to use any technology, there needs to be trust. And if there's no trust in place, and with this particular government, with this current environment that we're in, there's very little trust. We have an NHS that has been overworked, underfunded, understaffed for many years. We had austerity measures that have been in place. So unfortunately, you have a system where people have not been able to have the complete support that they've needed for a long time. And now you have a government saying, oh, do your duty and step up and take care of people. And by the way, we've developed this app and we want you to trust us with your information, even though we all know what happened in the Cambridge Analytical scene, what happened with the Brexit vote, what happened with vote leave, vote remain. We know how we were basically manipulated with lots of information. We have been manipulated for quite a while with the information that we're given, with how we're given that information, with the accessibility of the information that we are giving to governments and to companies, private companies also. And so now you have a government saying, we want you to trust us that we are not going to be using this app in the future for anything else, when in fact it does not state that. It doesn't anywhere state that. It's very clear that even with the GDPR, which we do not actually fall under after next year, that this app is being built for a further purpose. And unfortunately, when we look at the people that have been tasked to build the app, I mean, we have Baroness Dido, whatever her last name is, I can't remember, Harding, whatever. But she was in charge of TalkTalk. TalkTalk had a data breach, and they didn't even want to admit that they had that data breach. She was in charge of that, and she's the person that is going to be overseeing the overarching contact tracing beyond this app, beyond the NHS team. She is going to be seeing the whole thing. And so it's really mind-blowing that this has occurred. I mean, who are we trusting here? Who are we trusting with the information? Unfortunately, it seems like we either trust the government and the powers that be behind it, and we know that some of the teams that have contracts around this app, some of the teams that have the contracts behind the contracts behind the app, are people that have been affiliated with companies like Cambridge Analytica, Palantir, and then you have people on the private side, companies like Google and Apple, and they've not exactly been that much worthier of our trust. So now we find ourselves in this worldwide conundrum. And what does that mean? It means that we have to make the choice. We need to really look at what governments, what companies are doing.
If I got some pecans, I could do an
in this fifth industrial.
It's 8 beers you had.
Yeah, there's no.
Dan has just.
I think someone has unmuted the microphone. Can I please ask to unmute the microphone?
Lisa, you should be able to take control of Jan's mic and mute her.
Where from? Sorry.
If you click on the little... Jan, can you hear us?
She's muted now.
Okay, terrific. Sorry. Wait, why am I apologizing? But anyways, so we need to, as individuals, just even as society as a whole, we need to look at how we regain power. I don't even think that's the correct word. I would say how we retain our power, how we retain the information that we own, how we side with giving them our trust in order for this to work. Because I'm pretty much very much a futurist when it comes down to looking at the way that technology works in this area of surveillance and privacy and security. I was pretty much talking about surveillance, facial recognition a few years ago. And so now to see this come to fruition is somewhat scary, because when you're hoping that we get to a state where everybody is collaborating and we're coming together for a greater good, we're making sure that the world is becoming more equal, that we can have a true purpose behind using technology, so that is more equity behind what we're developing, that we're developing things for not just tech for good, because everything is usually built for something good. Unfortunately, there's usually more money in doing something bad with it, but it's really about driving forward humanity, about how we can come together and make sure that the purpose behind what we're doing in society is to make everybody have a better life. I mean, there's always going to be the unequal distribution of wealth and of power, but it's supposed to be elevating everybody. And unfortunately, we're going to be seeing a lot more divergent. It just seems not as inclusive as I would like it to be. It's a little disheartening. But the purpose, I would like us to be able to trust the people that are building the technology that we're supposed to use in order to keep us safe. And I'm not seeing where we can trust people, where we can trust the powers that be for what we need to keep safe. And I don't know, maybe other people can see it, because I'm seeing private corporations on one side, and they haven't exactly been the best to us. And then I'm seeing government on the other side. And unfortunately, a lot of what's driving them is money from interest groups behind people that are very, very wealthy. And it is about how to make money off of your average person. And with this contact tracing app, I'm seeing where it potentially will go. I don't think it will potentially go there. I think it's meant to go there. That's where they want it to go. It comes down to the fact that over the years, we have seen more privatization of things within the NHS. And as we all know, in order for any technology to become more accessible, become more acceptable, it is usually to go through healthcare. That's pretty much a trend we saw when Matt Hancock became the Minister for Health, is that he was formerly in charge of tech, and then he went to health. And then we saw more tech companies getting involved with healthcare, driving up that sort of arm of it. It is what it is. While I love technology, it's a little scary, because I can see that clear line of progression where now we have a contact tracing app, which can, if it's using Bluetooth, but can then be sending out that lovely signal, be connected to your Oyster card, which is telling people where you're going, which is also connected to your postcode, because most apps, especially when it's your Oyster card, whatever, is then connected to your postcode, which tells people where you live. Then if you're using free Wi-Fi in and around London and you're using the BT Tower codes, then you're giving up your location, even though they're saying it's not GPS enabled. There's so many things, and then you're connecting that with social media. There's so many tracking possibilities beyond what the app is being used for. And right now they're saying, oh, it's only going to be used and it's only going to be stored on one centralized location, which is it's just not true. It can't happen. I would think that probably everybody on this call really understands how anonymization works. This app doesn't preserve the anonymity of users, because starting out, it processes pseudonyms. And so that means they're not anonymous, because it's personal data. And anonymous information is only information that's not personal data. And this automatically would be personal data because of your mobile phone. And so it's just really frustrating, because that's automatically the problem. It cannot be. It cannot be if it's on a centralized system. It can't be. Oh, sorry. I'm just frustrated. Just got a little frustrated, a little over, a little lost in my head there, because my eye hurts. But yeah, I'm having gone from a really good day to a really bad day. Might probably just be better if I send everybody my slides. But can you go to slide number, oh, I'm not sure, slide number 8. Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to do this talk again on another day, but when there's not this issue. So this is kind of what happened a little bit after sort of Brexit. It was kind of, I'd say it was more UK than Europe, but it really sort of happened, this sort of nationalistic move and drive that happened. And then for some reason, it seemed like after we had Brexit and the UK was pulling away from Europe, it seemed like even though there were some countries in Europe that were becoming more nationalistic, it was not as heavy as it was before. There was, I don't know, it seemed like there was a little bit more of a strengthening of coming together, especially when it came down to the climate change. It seemed like there was an area where everybody was coming together. And now with this pandemic, it seems like we've kind of split apart. There's no purpose except for every country to preserve its citizens and only to focus on its citizens and to focus on its economy. It's become more inclusive inside of its own country. So it's become more isolationist, and there's not the collaboration that was there before. It seems like it's going away. So there's almost a loss to humanity that I'm seeing, that it's not happening. We're not able to reclaim who we are, reclaim our time, reclaim our freedoms, reclaim our trust. It's sort of eroded in, like, it seems like just the last 3 or 4 months. It's gone from, yay, we can finally move beyond, to let's regress. Let's go back to 18 whatever. Let's, make sure that nobody else comes into our country. Make sure we're able to, track and trace everybody who steps foot on our shores. Let's make sure that nobody can go anywhere unless we know exactly why they're going there. And wait a minute, do they have this virus? Have they had this virus? Will they potentially get this virus? Who are they spreading this virus to? So it's almost like we're no longer in this area of where we can all collaborate. We're seeing it with how people are developing their apps, how they're actually dealing with this virus. It's like people have vilified the WHO. It is what it is. They're saying that, there's all the conspiracy theories about who the WHO was working for and etc. But we see all of that, and I'm wondering, I'm just wondering, I should just probably stop rambling on now, because I got completely thrown off by my slides, by my laptop. At least I didn't kill the tablet. And yeah, just about everything. I don't know, just ask questions. You know what, let's just go to questions. Let's just have a discussion. I hope that's okay, to just have a discussion of people asking questions, having discussion, because that works better right now, because this is just not
Yes. So we can move to the discussion. I'm sure we have some questions from the chat.
Yeah, I was kind of all over the place. I'm really sorry, people.
So the chat is actually quite rich. I don't know if there is the first person that asked a question that wants to read it out loud. I'm just seeing a lot of very positive comments. Just chatting. If there is anyone with a question, please unmute yourself right now.
I know.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andrea Barberin. I'm from the United States, and I work for IBM Watson Health. So we use artificial intelligence for health applications. So you can imagine right now, we're trying to look at returning to the workplace, and we're trying to develop some support for that. And we're talking to folks and asking them, well, how do you feel about us using your personal data? And how are we going to weigh that against keeping you safe? And there's this incredible tension, because people are saying, look, if we're trying to get rid of COVID-19 and address this as a society, we're going to have to give up some personal information for that. So I guess, how do we have a more I don't know if you have any ideas about this. Maybe it's as a comment, I don't know if it's a question, but how do we have a more nuanced discussion about this? And how do we, or in your view, and how do we help people understand the real trade-offs? Because right now, I think in their mind, the trade-off is, well, I don't want to get sick, so I'll just give you what I have so that you can be sure that I don't get sick. So how do we up that a little bit and in a realistic way? Because people aren't going to fully get it, but how do we try to get them a little closer to getting it? And that's just my question, or wanted to throw that out there.
Oh no, it's really funny because last two years ago, so it was 2018, I actually gave a presentation where I talked about data connectivity, and that was with Jeremy Watson spoke before me, and he was talking about how great Watson was and how it could be such a help and such a driver for tech. And I pretty much got up there and vilified him and said, that's really great, but here's how it can be used for bad. And it comes down to, for me, it's always about the connectivity, the disparate data that when you put it all together, you're able to formulate a great big picture of somebody's life. And that's the scary part. That's the part that I think people need to be aware of. And they're not. They just think of it as, oh, I have my Twitter feed. Oh, I have my debit card. Oh, I have my Costco or my Shoppers Club card here. Oh, I've filled out this survey. I'm doing this survey and they want me to put in my postcode or my zip code. And they're not realizing that when all of those things come together, that forms a picture. And when it comes down to health data, I think this is probably the area that is the richest right now for farming, the richest for what's left that companies have not been able to utilize, because people are very, very protective of their personal information, especially their health information. And right now, this is this prime opportunity for someone to just take it and run. It's a matter of weighing up what information you're giving away, and then when it is paired with something, how valuable that information is. And I think that your average person is not thinking beyond, I just want to be able to go to work. I just want to be able to support myself, feed my family, keep safe. They're looking at, I wouldn't say the short-termism, but it is. They're looking at their lifespan. And I always think about it as your grandkids' lifespan. It's about legacy, because I said this last year, there won't be very much social mobility. There won't be very much socioeconomic mobility, because you have basically shut that off from the next generation, because the information that's available about you, your heart condition, the fact that you have diabetes, the fact that you live in a specific area where the pollution is very high, the fact that you share a lot of where you go to eat, you don't exercise, the type of car you drive, all of this information, we already know it's out there. And that's how a lot of hackers function. It's already out there, so people can get that information. But then when you add in the healthcare data, it's now the insurance company is going to look at that 2 generations down the road and say, well, we know that historically your family is prone to this disease, prone to having coronavirus because, someone in your family did, and you didn't get inoculated. So your estimate, your premium is going to be pretty high. That's the way that I look at it. I'm not looking at it as, oh yeah, for the next couple months I won't be able to go here or there. I know that's going to exist, but I'm looking at it long term. It's the freedoms that you give up now, because once the door is open, it doesn't close. You open the door. And once the information is given, it can't be taken back. They don't put measures in place, especially here in the UK. You've given that information away, it's not coming back. And we see it with, things that happen with Cambridge Analytica, with Facebook. You put information on an app and they say, oh, you can delete your app. You can delete the information. You can get rid of your whatever, your account. It's not, it's there forever. And a lot of people think that it's ambiguous, and it is. When people say the cloud is not a cloud. It's hardware. It's a repository of information sitting on some electronic equipment out in the desert somewhere. It's hardware. It's not a cloud. It's not ambiguous. It is there forever. And people don't understand that. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work, how you're going to get people to realize that. It's that, I think that's what's missing. People just, they don't get the information. They just see the short-termism of, I just want to live life now. And I mean, and that's fine. I mean, I could be like, I don't have children. I could be like, I want to live life now. I want to do what I want to do. But I just keep looking at the kids, the information that's being built up about them. And, you know, you have people share renting, people just sharing so much information about their children. And I worry about how that's going to be furthering humanity in the future, because it's going to be like this, where, you know, you're going to be living in the same town, or you're going to move to a similar town to where you live now, because you can't move to a bigger place. You know, there's going to be no mobility here when it comes to anything in life, the way that it's going with how much people are giving away, because basically you're just being kept in the same place. That's the way I think about it.
I have a question. Hi guys.
Oh wait,
Hi,
wait.
Suki.
I know Zoltan, you wanted to ask a question, but
Okay,
sorry.
we are off.
Yeah, no, Graham.
Sorry.
No. Graham was like wanting to ask a question since before anybody else.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers. Thank you. So, by the way, Suki, I really feel for you on the presentation side of things today. You have them days sometimes, they just don't go right, do they? It's a terrifying situation. It's a horror. It's a person's worst nightmare. I really feel for you.
That is what it is, right?
I also loved your comments on the NHS. They were fantastic. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. My question to you is, do you think that the economic growth will start to swell as a result of globalisation decreased in Britain and the coronavirus being implemented? And do you presume the inequalities will get even larger due to result of unemployment and company losses due to coronavirus?
So let me take the first part of that. Could you repeat the first part of that again?
Do you think the economic growth will start to swell as a result of globalisation decreasing in Britain? Because of the coronavirus, you know, because of what's happening with firms going bust and what's about to happen because of the economic undergrowth we're now seeing.
Well, I'd say we were always on trend for a recession. I mean, it's sort of, it was going to happen. We've sort of been having these little fake, nice little bumps. I mean, Mark Carney, when he was governor of Bank of England, he did everything he could to keep it, you know, to sort of keep it there. But it was going to happen. And unfortunately, in the UK, the infrastructure does not exist. I mean, right now we've had to bring in people from Europe to pick our fruit and vegetables, because the core infrastructure, the base of the infrastructure of the economy was not there. We're a service economy now. And it is about shopping, eating out, and while there is sort of this economy that exists of banking, but it's still service. It's still sort of, and then you have the service economy, which is businesses that are serving restaurants, hotels, you know, supporting people that are traveling, supporting the sort of the ends of society that are, it's not manufacturing. And that's the problem. We have manufacturing, but not at the level that we used to, and not at the level that's needed in order for the economy to grow. At least that's my opinion. Infrastructure that exists, it comes down to the people, and we don't have the people that are willing to do the jobs, or the people that can do the jobs. When it comes down to tech, that's really great, but we need people that can actually do the basics of tech. You need the people that can do C++, that can do HTML, that know about MS-DOS. And unfortunately, with tech, we're getting people that can build on top of tech. But as you see right now in society, we need the people that understand what happens at the very base when it breaks. And that's what I think is missing currently in our society. That's the problem that I see in business. When people are building a business, they're not building the humanity into their business at the very base. They're building it into they're going, oh, tech for good, or, you know, we have a purpose, a social purpose behind our business after the fact. You're seeing it more now recently where people are building a social purpose into their business, but that's only happened probably in the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years. You're seeing more businesses doing that, but you have the biggest companies, a lot of them don't exist with that. A lot of the companies that have been here that are part of our infrastructure. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think about it, and I think about just the infrastructure, just roads, just how we fix our roads, how we build our buildings. I don't understand where everybody's talking about we want to have new buildings, we want to have smart buildings. A lot of the buildings in the United Kingdom are protected buildings. You are not able to go into a building and to make it a smart building. The infrastructure doesn't exist. You have to tear down that building. You can build as much as you possibly can on top of it, but you're not going to have it to be at that place where someone who is hard of hearing, blind, has a disability, can get up and down the stairs because there's no elevator in the building, because you can't put an elevator in because it's a protected building. There are things that blow my mind, and nobody's thinking about that. They're just thinking, oh, we want to do this tech. But with what exists now, we need to be able to put something in at the base. And people want to build on top. You need to build underneath also. That's how it's going to become a better society. You have to build the base, and you can't just want to have the pretty flowers without having.
You can't start before you can walk. You mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at what they want to do with this app. They're not even putting in the base, and the basis how. This is what we're going to do. They're not even being transparent. We don't have a level of trust. It's like, how do you expect 60% of the population to download this app when they don't even trust you? People don't even trust you when you are in a news conference. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes,
but I'm sorry. And the second part of your question, sorry, I started ranting.
The second part was with the coronavirus being implemented, do you presume the inequalities will get larger due to the result of unemployment and company losses?
Definitely. You already see it, the vilification of teachers. You know, you see it with who gets to go back to work first. Your essential workers. The people that are on the front line right now are generally people that are working on contracts where they have to go back to work. They're working on 0-hour contracts. They can't afford to not be at work. They're not being furloughed. They're not getting any government assistance. People that have LTDs, we're not getting anything. You have people that are working on industrial sites. You have people that work in restaurants and hotels. All of the people that are essentially your low-paid workers, unskilled, although it seems that, oh yeah, everybody needs them right now. They're the ones that are going to be hurt the most. They're also going to be the ones that, should they not go back to work, should they seek help, are being called, skivers, and, oh, you just want to sit on a couch and get government assistance and you're not doing anything. Then you have the vilification of teachers, where people are saying, well, why don't teachers want to go back to work now? Well, people also have forgotten, teachers are parents too. Teachers also have been ill. People talk about the public transportation. Why hasn't the mayor, or why haven't any cities, why haven't they opened up their transportation? Those are people too. They drive the buses, they drive the trains, they actually have to move your food from X to Y to Z, whatever. they get sick too. It can't be at 100% capacity. If you think of the society as a whole, there's a percentage that's sick, and in that percentage there's going to be a percentage within every single industry. So I don't understand.
They also said in Sweden, for instance, Sweden come out of in Sweden they actually had no lockdown. Is that how can you sustain the consistency if some countries are going to go to lockdown, other countries aren't?
Exactly.
You get deaths spreading, and it's going to go on like that, isn't it? So,
and not only that, I'm of the firm belief that we never actually were out of herd immunity.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, our lockdown wasn't really a lockdown. So the way that I see it, because if you're having a lockdown, it should have been like Italy or like Spain. You were locked down. You weren't going anywhere. But ours was, oh, you can go out, you can do this, you can do that. People were always in violation of that. So here, herd immunity was already there. We were letting people come in and out of the country. Yeah. It's just, so it was already there. Sweden, I will see. I think for every country in the world, you're going to have different results. You're going to, there's the demographics of the country, the way that people actually live their lives.
For instance, in America, Wisconsin in America.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
What happened was, I know you heard, the government actually said that all states have got to be in lockdown, and the Wisconsin state's government gave a declaration over Donald Trump's actual statement and let them go out of lockdown. It's ridiculous. So.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be really, I mean, if you want to look at the data after the fact, unfortunately it's not going to be really good, because right now the numbers that we're being told, oh, this is the latest figure. It can't be the latest figure. It's got to be at least 7 to 10 days older, or even I think it's like 14 days if you really think about it. That it blows my mind when people are concentrating on the numbers of today, because it's not real. That's the numbers of today are really what's reported 7 days ago or 10 days ago. I think the ONS has it. So now that we've come out of this little lockdown and we're now back to we can go out and go to work phase, what's going to be interesting is to look at the numbers, I'd say probably about 14 to 21 days from now, to really get a true feeling of how this has worked. And I don't think it's going to be good, because people are already in violation. And let's see, this weekend we have another nice weekend of weather. And then by the end of the month, we'll have another bank holiday. So, and I said it before, when we first started, I told my friends, I said, we're not going to be out of this lockdown phase. I said June. I kept telling people, I said, I'm planning on June. And they said, no. And I said, I'm planning on June, when we actually, it should have been. I mean, I kept saying they're piecemeal and piecemeal and piecemeal. And unfortunately, I think the government, they just couldn't hold their ground enough. So they kept saying, oh, we're just going to see what it looks like in 3 weeks. We'll do another review. And they couldn't hold their line, because there's too much pressure from businesses that are large businesses that actually could hold on a little bit longer for the economy.
Suki, I think that also Sultan had a last question. I just wanted to give Sultan the chance to ask a question, as we are a bit over time.
Yeah, no, Zoltan, you're not allowed. I know Zoltan, not allowed.
No, it's fine. Thanks for the great insights. I just have one question. So, since we live in a digital world, can we realistically expect that we won't give away our data, because everything is moving online, and just like soon we won't have cash? So my question is it realistic? Can we realistically expect this? Because we didn't want to have mobile phones like 20, 30 years ago, and now, kids of 3 or 2, they are carrying a mobile phone. So do you think that we can avoid that at the end?
I don't think it's going to be avoidable. I think, unfortunately, what we're going to have, as I said, the income equality gap is going to be wider, because you're going to see the parts of society that can't operate without any, they have to use cash. You're going to see, I guess, I hate to use those terms, the fringes of society, but you're going to see homeless people, people that are working, you know, on jobs where they're getting paid cash in hand. You're going to see more and more of those people not being able to live, not being able to sustain themselves. I mean, you're going to see more homeless people. I really do think we're going to see more homeless people, because as the world becomes more digital, we are cutting off parts of society. You have people that don't have smartphones. Everybody's saying, oh, well, just get a smartphone. People that can barely afford the phone that they have, which may be a smartphone, but they can't afford to get the internet access on that smartphone. You know, everybody says, get a smartphone. Yeah, you got the smartphone, but you have to be able to continue to sustain the accessibility on that phone, on that device. You need the plan. You need the prepaid plan. You need the pay-as-you-go plan. And what does that take? It takes money. Then you have people that don't have places to live. Guess what? Can't get a bank account. Okay, yeah, they're changing. There are organizations that are working with that. But still, you're not able to sustain that if you don't have an income. They're not able to get a job because they don't have a postcode to put on that job application to say that's where they live. And then I just think it's going to become, unfortunately, if something is not done, if we don't have the collaboration and the collectivism of society, the good, the humanity of society coming together to say, guess what, this should not happen, this needs to not happen, it's gonna all go to kaput. And I'm praying, and I'm pretty optimistic. Some days, as you know, Zoltan, I can be really optimistic, and then there's a part of me that is very pragmatic and lean in very much towards the side of pessimism, where I think there are people that have so much money, so much at stake, where they want to control. They always want to be in control. They want to continue to be in control. They're not willing to give up that power so that the average person can be empowered, can keep our information and have just that little bit of power, because we really don't have that much anymore. And I'd say, if anything, the one thing that we truly have still, it is our healthcare data. That's, if there's one aspect that we still control, it's that information. And this seems like it's the last step to take control of many parts of your life. It's like full circle. But that's just me. I'm going to try not to be, I won't be so pessimistic. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that. That was not the purpose of this talk. It was not going to be like that. I don't know. I'm so sorry that the tech went bad.
Okay, never mind.
No, Suki, thank you. Thank you for answering to all of these really interesting questions, and thank you for the really interesting thoughts and idea that you'll be able to bring in today. Before we wrap up, as we already went a bit over time, I don't know if there is any other final questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a day from here.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. Thank you, Suki.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Suki. Thank you, guys.
Really enjoyed your company.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.